about community rights and about democracy school. I actually attended a democracy school in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh area, last March. My husband and I lived there for 22 years, and the area of Pennsylvania, southwest Pennsylvania, that we lived in and we raised our children in, we had 10 acres there, was being fracked. And no longer being there, but all of our family being back there, we felt really compelled to get educated. And through just an old friend and a connection, actually she was a water specialist, I got plugged into democracy school. And we went there and attended. It was a 2-day, 12-hour course run by CELDEF, which is the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund. It's an organization, a legal organization that defends communities for environmental issues, on environmental issues. It completely changed my view of the world. And I don't know how much more profoundly to describe it than that. I had gotten a very, very good education in my youth. And I was also a good student. So I came at my adult world with a lot of information and not a lot of knowledge about how I thought my government worked, how I thought my world operated. And the 2 days that I spent in democracy school completely turned that knowledge base on its head. What I learned is that we, as citizens of this country, we have no sovereign rights. But that our sovereign rights are granted to us by being human. And that through the language in the Constitution, we have a right to insist that those rights be upheld. And democracy school gave me the language, gave me the underlying information that I needed in order to be able to take that understanding out into my world and address issues in my community. So all of last year, we, a group of us, were dealing with, in Boulder County, and I'm sure you read it, it was in the news, in Boulder County we have open space, 100,000 acres. 25,000 of it is agricultural land. And our county commissioners had made a decision that they were going to allow the farmers that lease that land to plant genetically modified crops. We felt as a citizenry that we should have a say in how that land was managed. And so we went about educating as many of our fellow citizens as we could. We sent thousands and thousands of emails over a 9-month period, multiple documents, went to, I can't tell you, countless meetings, invested thousands of hours, and in the end, our county commissioners voted not only to allow the continuation of the planting of genetically modified corn, but also the planting of genetically modified sugar beets. We lost the battle. And the reason we lost the battle is for the very, very reasons that I learned in democracy school. So Boulder County is what's called a statutory county. How many here live in Boulder County? Okay, how many here live like within the environs of Denver? Okay, so in the state of Colorado, and this is the piece of information, the education that I want to impart. And what follows with these three people, you'll need this piece of information. In the state of Colorado, we have the capacity as citizens within our county and within our cities to establish what is called home rule. By default, all of our counties and all of our cities are what are called statutory. In other words, they are obligated and bound to the laws of the state of Colorado. What I found out in my research, Boulder County is a statutory county, that our county commissioners are not obligated by oath of office to us as the citizens. They are obligated to the Constitution of the state of Colorado. And the only way to change that was to become home rule. What home rule does is home rule provides you with the ability to actually put referendums and initiatives on the ballot. As a statutory county, we were limited to 3. Number 1, we could extend the number of terms that our county commissioners could serve from 2 to 3. Big deal, right? Yeah, like we really want to do that, exactly. No, thank you. We could, number 2, we could actually impose a tax on ourselves, which we did in Boulder County. That's how we created open space. We imposed a tax on ourselves. That tax then created a special office, Office of Open Space, which then had the ability to buy land that then belonged to the county. That 25,000 acres of agricultural land was acquired because we as the citizens passed that law, passed that regulation. The third one is that we can put a referendum, an initiative on the ballot to become home rule. And once we are home rule, we can then put any initiative on the ballot. And we, the people, actually have a voice. All right? So if you're looking at a continuum of us being able to assert your rights as sovereign citizens of a community, statutory counties, statutory environments, statutory governmental systems are here. Home rule, it's about here. Community rights, it's up here. Because what community rights ordinances do is they establish the rights of a community. Now, in the laws of this country, we have no rights as communities. We have rights as individuals. We have a right to vote and elect our representatives. Corporations have many rights. And the reason that corporations have many rights is because it has been determined that because they don't have a voice, that their dollars are their voice. So, I as an individual making however much money I make a year have that many votes. A corporation making billions of dollars a year has that many votes. And they can use that money however they choose to buy lobbying efforts, etc. And it is why currently in the United States of America we have a corporatocracy. Because our governmental system, through, by the way, the law, the legal system, and through decisions at the Supreme Court level, have granted the rights that were once ours as individual citizens of this country, have granted those rights to corporations. And because corporations have more money, they now have more rights. And more power. So this is where we are. Now, where does community rights come into this? Community rights comes into this because once we establish a community rights ordinance within our community, we now have not equal standing, but better standing. And it is one way that we can fight things like fracking and agrochemical imposition and other things. Okay? We're here today to teach you about that and to give you some information. But the other thing that I want to communicate is that there are a number of democracy schools that are being held in the area over the next month or two. We've got 2 in Lyons, one the 11th and the 10th and 11th of February, and another one the 13th and 14th of February. I have some printouts here if anybody's interested at the end. They're on the table. There's also a brochure about Democracy School. I passionately encourage all of you to please attend. As community activists, there is nothing more important that we can do than to educate ourselves to break through that contrived understanding that has been imposed on us through our education, through our media, and through our government of what our rights are. We are sovereign citizens of this earth, and we have a right to demand clean air, clean water, clean food, and a healthy existence. Our governmental structure does not allow that. And the only way that we can get those rights exercised is through community rights ordinances right now. And attending Democracy School will help you understand how that can happen. So as activists and as people that can make a huge difference in this world, the more of us that are educated to the language and understanding, the more effective these ordinances can be because the more of them we can get passed. Okay? Just as final, I'm just going to read this one final paragraph. It's actually on the brochure, and it's a pretty good understanding. Democracy School is a stimulating and illuminating course that teaches citizens and activists how to reframe exhausting and often discouraging single-issue work, such as opposing fracking, toxic chemicals, quarry, factory farms, uranium, longwall mining, GMOs, etc., in a way that confronts corporate control on a powerful single front. People's constitutional rights and rights for nature. It also traces the development of people's rights and corporate rights through U.S. history, so we understand how things came to be the way that they are. I'm going to pass it on to Teresa.
Sure.
Very good. Thank you for your attentiveness.
Hi, my name's Teresa Foster, and I live in Longmont, Colorado. And so we're going to take this whole thing about corporate rights, community rights, and bring it to what's going on in the city of Longmont. And I'll just give you a little brief history, and then I'm going to show you a video clip of me being basically shut down by our city council. And it gives you a good example of what they call being colonized, or the other word is, being shut down for speaking truths, so to speak. In October, we found out that our city was going to be fracked. It came about in a very sneaky way. One of our watchdogs, who's on the Board of Environmental Affairs, she brought it to light that we were going to have fracking occurring by Union Reservoir, which is a beautiful area that has wildlife and recreation and so forth. And people got into a panic. We went into this horrible panic. At that time, there was an organization that had a presentation where Phil Doe and Wes Wilson were presenting at, and that was like my first education to, oh shit, here we go. We don't know what's going to happen, right? And then I went to democracy school along with Sonia and with Phil, and I vowed that I was going to bring some change to Longmont from a community rights basis. So what we've been doing since then is we've been showing up at City Council. We've been spreading out the word for people to come and say we don't want fracking. And we were able to get a moratorium. We have a 120-day moratorium. But all that does is it basically slows the process down so that the city can actually make better regulations. Now, one thing that you're going to learn in democracy school is regulations make things less bad. They don't solve the problem. You're still going to get fracked. So what we are doing, there's a subgroup of the people in Longmont that we're working on actually a community rights charter amendment. Longmont is home rule, which is really a blessing. So that means that we can actually bring this to ballot to ban fracking in our city. Now, this is not going to be an easy task. So anyways, I'm just going to tell you that working with City Council has not exactly been a bowl of cherries. One of the problems that we had was getting independent experts to come out and speak. And luckily, we were able to get Wes Wilson, who's not in this room, but Phil Doe, to come out and speak to our City Council and to one of our a group advisory board meeting. But to get that to happen, that really was a struggle, because they don't want to listen to me. They have it in their minds how they're going to be doing it. And they go by what staff recommends, and it's this game. And so I had to appeal to the mayor and the city manager to bring these people in, because what they had done is they brought in people from the industry. And what the industry does is they have all this propaganda to make it sound like fracking's okay. But why is there the movie Gasland? Why is there Split Estate and other movies that say that, no, it's not really very good? So anyhow, the reason why I brought this video clip was it highlights something that happened at City Council. I was fortunate to get copies of a DVD by the Endocrine Disruption Exchange. It's called What You Need to Know About Natural Gas Production. It's an absolutely marvelous. It basically goes into the whole process, and then the dangers of the chemicals, and the volatile organic compounds. And so I actually gave a copy to each one of the City Council members. One council member at the end of the meeting came up to me and handed it back to me. And I started complaining. He accused me of threatening him. So I wrote a letter to the editor to say that he bullied me. He forced me to take this back, and I questioned his ability to make decisions on behalf of the citizens of Longmont. Well, I wasn't going to let it go after that. That appeared in the Longmont Times Call the day before Christmas. So at the next City Council meeting, I brought it up again. I said, how can our Mayor Pro Tem, Gabe Santos, make a decision on behalf of the city if he's not willing to educate himself? So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to play the little clip of me getting up in front of City Council and how a member shut me down for saying you can't say that. And the thing is, I did not say anything wrong. It was all fact-based. So we'll go ahead and play this little clip, and I'll give you an idea. Is it coming up?
It was just asleep.
Thank you. And the mayor is wonderful. This is Mayor Dennis Coombs. He's actually is a wonderful man.
It's like David Letterman.
My name is Teresa Foster, and I live at 712 Thornwood Way. It has been 3 weeks since I had given you all a copy of the DVD titled What You Need to Know About Natural Gas Production, narrated by scientist and environmental analyst Dr. Theo Colborn. Have you had a chance to watch it? Would you be concerned about the fact that Mayor Pro Tem Santos refused his copy of the DVD and handed it back to me after the December 20th council meeting? How can he make informed decisions without first considering all sides of an issue? Does he have the health, well-being, and safety of his constituents in mind?
Sir,
My guess is his constituents would want him to be extremely well-versed on this topic. I have more questions for council.
Councilmember Wynn?
I'm sorry, we don't prevent personal attacks.
I'm just stating the facts. I'm stating the facts.
Perhaps you could say a council member.
Okay, but there was one council member that refused it. Considering the toxicity of the chemicals and volatile organic compounds, VOCs, that result from drilling for natural gas, which includes drilling, fracking, processing, waste handling, and ongoing gas collection, how comfortable are you having these chemicals and VOCs released into your neighborhood? Would you consider the COGCC's mandate of 350 feet to be a safe setback distance? If you allow natural gas drilling in Longmont, would you be willing to move next to a drilling site to show the citizens it is safe? Would you allow your children or grandchildren to go to a school next to a drilling site? Had you ever heard about the health effects that occur from exposure to fracking chemicals and volatile organic compounds produced from natural gas drilling before watching the video? The Colorado Oil and Gas Association and COGCC claim this technology is safe, but let me assure you it isn't. Here are some of the effects from exposure: burning skin, nausea, headaches, fatigue, dizziness, tingling in the extremities that can lead to permanent nerve damage, gastrointestinal problems, endocrine disorders, cancer, death. Dr. Colborn states that 43% of the known chemicals disrupt the endocrine system. And by the way, we aren't privy to this information until April 2012 here in Colorado. Exposure during pregnancy can interfere with the development of the fetus, causing irreversible lifetime changes in their health and how they function later in life. Further, Dr. Colborn mentions that health issues may not show up until months and or years after exposure that can never directly be traced to industrial exposure.
I'm going to just stop it there. I mean, these are the things that Dr. Colburn talks about in her video. And basically what happened is, by getting interrupted by Councilmember Katie Witt, I did not get to finish what I had to say. And the last thing that I was going to say is, bringing this kind of industrial activity into the city is far too risky. I asked you to support an actual ban under our home rule provision, where our rights as citizens supersede those of the state of Colorado. So this is an example of what they call corporate municipalities, where you're put under their thumb and they believe they have the authority over you. However, in a follow-up email to the mayor and the rest of the council, I said, first of all, what I said were facts. And second of all, the public was muzzled. And that's part of this whole thing that Democracy School teaches you, is that we have rights, inalienable rights, to clean water, health, and to be able to express our opinion. And the last thing is that I lost my train of thought there. Sorry about that. I'm new at this. I think the most important thing is that we have a choice of how our city is going to be making decisions, and that that the people in city council are our public servants and they work for us, not the other way around. And I was confirmed by the mayor and one of the other city council members that everything that I had written and said was perfectly within the realm of being okay, and that this person, Katie Witt, was out of line. So I'll just leave it at that. You know, it's just a good example of what other people are going through as they fight this battle too. Thanks. We'll answer questions after. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sonia. I live in Aurora, Colorado, and started the group with the Frack when we were trying to at first address the first drilling we became aware of, which is at the former Lowry bombing range, which is actually land that belongs to everyone in Colorado. State Land Board land is land that's parceled out from all different areas, and revenues from it go to education. So they were planning a number of wells, 98. Now they're talking 120. This is land where there's unexploded ordnance, that's bombs, underneath there from the, that used to be a bombing site. There are 4 aquifers under there. There's also the former Lowry landfill, which used to be the depository for hazardous waste for all of Colorado. And because at that time the EPA CERCLA, or the EPA Superfund site law, applied, the polluters had to pay to remediate some of that property. What we found out when we first started looking into this idea of all these oil wells coming into Aurora, it was such a bizarre concept, because you think of Texas, Nigeria, all these places that have massive oil, and you don't think of your own community. So what I wanted to talk about today is what we've learned along the way. And each community is going to have different discoveries. But I wanted to share some things that were common. I see people from different areas, from Erie, you're from Steamboat Springs, right? From Commerce City. There are a bunch of us here today from South Park, all over. There are community groups all over Colorado that have popped up on this issue. More pop up every day, because what's new with this new horizontal fracking is that they're going into very populated areas, residential areas, right into towns. They're doing it in areas of Colorado that weren't traditionally thought of as oil areas either. So communities in the North Fork Valley, for example, where they have a lot of ranching and organic orchards and so on, are up at arms because that's their livelihood, precisely, is the pristine quality of the produce and et cetera that they raise. So that's brand new, coming right into where people are living in an area where people didn't understand when they moved there. Oh, I know this is an oil area, there'll be drilling, but I'm going to move here anyway. No, it's the people are there, the drillers are coming in. That's new. And this new technique has much more significant impact than any of the previous techniques used. So what we discovered along the way is that in order to get the attention of the community and to make them aware that there's an incoming big problem, big truck coming your way, we want to let you know about it and help us, join us to help slow that train down. We discovered that obviously industry has a vested interest in making a lot of money on this, and they're one of our largest industries in the States, so they have a lot of money to throw at it. And one of the first things they threw, I'm going to hold up some signs that I'm recycling them. I'll use them again. This was from the EPA rally in September. We discovered that there were exemptions to federal safety regulations called the Halliburton loophole that was passed in 2005. And if Wes Wilson is here, I don't see him, he was the whistleblower from the EPA that said, wait a minute, this isn't correct about fracking. It does pose a hazard to safety for safe drinking water look at the studies. They appointed and had a conflict of interest in who presented the studies. So all of our federal regs that would normally protect us don't apply. So, for example, if they pollute now out at Lowry, the former Lowry bombing range, and there's a big spill, they may do some surface cleaning, but there's no requirement for them to fully remediate. And some of the stuff you can't fully remediate. Once you've completely toxified the water, you've destroyed it. And there's nothing further that human beings can do with it. But what these exemptions do is they also preempt or preclude central data collection. So you can't be collecting, you can't be monitoring, at the same time collecting huge amounts of data, so that you can then have an early warning system that, wait a minute, there's a lot of health problems associated with this, all these toxic emissions and so on. So instead, you just notice that, oh, in this community where they've done it now for 4 years, we're seeing a lot of clusters of respiratory disorder and neuropathies and other neurological issues and so on. And so each community is just popping up all over. And when you tell that to industry, they say, you don't have the data. Well, this is why we don't have the data. We need to close that loophole at the federal level. Anyway, we knew early on that industry had a vested interest. They paid a lot of money to get those exemptions, and they pay a lot of money to do a PR strategy. Their PR strategy is similar all over the nation, but it starts out with it's domestic, it's clean, it's safe, it's a bridge fuel, a natural shale gas and oil. And when you do some reading and some research, poking around, you discover, no, it is not safe, it's not clean. The emissions are extraordinary, the water use is just, it's unlivable, unsustainable, it's unacceptable. It's not, you can't, there's no coexisting with it. It's a path to oblivion. So at the front end of presentations that we give, most of us start out with information like that, kind of breaking down those myths that they present to us. But it's very difficult to get the word out and to organize in communities, because not only has industry spent millions and millions and millions on their PR, but our Colorado State Regulatory Authority, the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, is pretty well co-opted by industry. They have two portions to their mandate. One is promotion of oil and gas. The other one is environmental stewardship. Well, that one is, they don't really pursue that. And so you have the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, which is the authority, the respected public authority. You have industry, which has the mantle of respectability because they're so wealthy and they do so well and so on. And you now have, we're seeing lately, the Attorney General's office joining in, stating that the state's rights and interests in extracting oil are preemptive and superior to all community rights. And they've been going from community to community when it's time for us to consider, shall we have a moratorium? Shall we make our rules a little tighter to try and deal with this? And they will come in, and industry, COGCC, and the Attorney General's office now all have the same message. That's disturbing. And the governor also, we don't want a patchwork. The communities need to get it together, fall under COGC rules. Well, our rules aren't protective enough. So in trying to organize community responses, again, we found that the environmental groups were not representing these opinions and sounding alarm bells and saying, wait, what about clean air? What about the water? What about, the fact that when they move into a community, communities lose 20% property values when they're adjacent there? That's uncompensated. Is there some reason why I should be able to come over and take your wallet? Probably not. That's what an uncompensated loss is. There are also threats to mortgages and the severe threat to health. That's, very obvious. Huge numbers of spills, accidents, flares, explosions, etc., all 350 feet from where people live, if you're lucky. If it wasn't 150 feet from where you live, which can happen too. So community groups that have popped up, I think some of us are getting really exhausted because we're appearing before these county commissioners and council members, and you go through a long period of total disdain where they will feel free to make very disdainful comments about what you've just said, as if you are from Mars and are presenting information that you just made up on the spot. And it's a draining process. My city of Aurora asked me to present to them a kind of dossier on all these different issues. I wound up presenting them like a 3-inch paper file, and had submitted other stuff prior. But we're at the point now where we're saying we're tired of doing your work. You're our government, and it's time for you guys to do your work. So how we're going to change it in Aurora, we did get them to the point where one council member is willing to look at a moratorium. And a moratorium isn't an answer. It is kicking the can down the road. But we want people to have enough time to learn about the issue. So it's been hard to pierce that veil and get some information out there. With more time, we could do more. We're going to be asking our city to show us the real price tag. They're talking about money. There's lots of money in this, lots of jobs, and so on. And that's great, but they're not looking at the cost. It's like going to a car dealer and saying, oh, this car would take me to work, it would do this, it would do that. And you never get around to talking about price. Well, we need to know about what these costs are, and we're asking them to do a true accounting, to stop externalizing costs, and to include, costs to the environment that will cost us in the end. And our plan is to insist that, frankly, water is, like they say in that commercial for the credit cards, priceless. And when you destroy water, you can't recreate it again. It's gone. So we've been overwhelmed. Each of the community groups in each of our communities, we're trying to get. We started in September trying to get an alliance together. We communicate. We sure need help with the technology end to create a better communication system between us that would also store documents so that we could use it like a library. And someone who could help, maintain, like be the webmaster or whatever technology we need. We need people to help do that piece of it. We are in desperate need of that. But in your own community, if you could, you can find out there are various websites. There's a new one called Save Colorado from Fracking that has great information. There's ours called frackingcolorado.wordpress.com that Sandy maintains. And there's information on it here. I shamelessly brought it. Well, not shameless. That's what I'm asking for today, is for you to sign on to our petition for Arapahoe County. If you would consider it, we're asking for a 6-month moratorium. We detail all the unstated harms that need to be clear and that we don't want in our community.
Do we have to be from Arapahoe County?
No. And I also brought from Food and Water Watch Ban Fracking Now cards. If you would like to fill this out and put your name and address and email, I will use this in several capacities to present at local levels and at state levels. And if you put a check mark somewhere on here indicating you want me to put you on an email list, we'll do that too. If you don't put a big check mark. I think that's about it. I did want to just mention 2 more things. On February 4th, the Sierra Club and the Audubon Society is having a legislative overview regarding environmental issues. And in there they state that, let me just see what it said, that they're looking at the hot issues in Colorado, and that one of the main hot issues is the merger of Colorado Division of Wildlife and Parks, which could possibly threaten Great Outdoors Colorado. That may very well be true, but this fracking thing coming into Colorado is going to destroy the great outdoors altogether. So if you'd want to communicate with the Sierra Club or the Audubon Society or any of the other environmental groups and let them know, ask the question, where are you on the front lines on this? That we have a window of time right now to keep this from destroying our state and each of our communities. And so right now is when we need to mobilize. And one more item, February 12th, Phil and I and Shane Davis and Wes Wilson are doing a presentation at the Universalist Unitarian Church on the 12th in Denver at 1 o'clock, called Fracturing Colorado, with different points of view in terms of environmental impacts, impacts to our economies, impacts to water, and with great visuals from Shane showing you what it looks like when they come into the community and showing you the data from the COGCC website and the missing data from our regulatory website.
Which UU church?
Hamden and in Colorado. Yeah.
What was
the 12th.
Give all the details around it again.
February 12th, Fracturing Colorado, Universalist Unitarian Church. And if you put your check mark on one of those cards, we'll send you an email about it.
Time of the event?
1 o'clock. Thanks.
What time? 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
Thank you.
I speak from memory, so it's my age, it's always a very short presentation. I'm going to talk macro here about how massive this enterprise is and what it means to the people of this state. In the state of Colorado, while you were having dinner, the oil and gas industry came into this state and leased 5 million acres of public land and 1 million acres of state land. That's 6 million acres. That's a land mass size larger than the size of Massachusetts. Nobody knows how much private land they've leased because the state doesn't monitor it. Go down and ask them. They have no clue. They do know that almost 9,000 leases of private land were let last year, but they don't know the land mass. It's our estimate that the private land is probably greater than the combined public land, and maybe twice as large, because the Front Range is all underlain by the shale that they're after. So how much water does it take? These things are tied inextricably, the water and land use. It takes 5 million gallons of water to frack one horizontal well. 5 million gallons. That's enough water for the domestic needs of 150 people. Guess how many wells they want to drill in this state? 100,000 between in the next 10 to 20 years. Take 5 million times 100,000, and pretty soon you start seeing the massiveness of this enterprise. But that's not the end of it. It's not like your old well. This is an entirely new technology. It's 5 or 6 years old. They don't just put one well down when they come into a section of land. They put down as many wells as they need. Our state regs allow 32 wells per section. That's not going to happen probably under horizontal fracking. It'll probably be a maximum of 10, and more likely in the magnitude of 6. But that's 6 wells in one spot. And the offset in these cities is only 350 feet. So try and visualize 10, 15 wells on a 15-acre pad that's there for the next 20 years. And it's only 350 feet away from your house, or your school, or your hospital, because that's what our state regs allow. Now you may well ask, why would they come into the cities when they already have 12, 18 million acres of land all over the state? Because they're the greediest people in the world, that's why. And because our state legislature, our governor, and our regulators won't stop them. So we must stop them ourselves. And that's going to take bans in cities. That's why the Democracy School is here, to give you an idea how you might accomplish this. That's why Be the Change, a friend of mine, Richard Hamilton, who lives in Fairplay, and I are sponsoring these two initiatives, one of which would create a public trust doctrine for the state of Colorado, and one of which would deny the use of our water for fracking as not being a beneficial use. The one thing that you have to realize about using water, our water, it belongs to the public. And under our Constitution, it's the public's water. We allow people to use it for beneficial use, but it's our water. There's no question about that. One of the things that happens when you use this water for fracking is it's gone forever. They destroy it. You can't use it. They bury it so deep, they hope it never gets back to the surface. But that's an unknown too, as if the earth is not somehow massively moving at all times in plate tectonics. They're going to put this 12,000 feet down and hope to God it never comes back to the surface. They don't even know what the hell's in it. They don't measure it. They don't measure the air. They don't measure the water. They have no comprehensive studies of what the impacts of all this might be on the people of Colorado, our natural environment. None of these things have been done. In a very real sense, the oil and gas industry owns this state. They own the people that make our rules and regulations, because at the bottom line, we get a little tiny bit of what the oil and gas industry gets. And I mean a little tiny bit. In this state, we have a severance tax. Some of you may have remembered we tried to raise it. It's 4.5%. The state gets 16% or 16.5% royalty on any oil or gas production on state land. The feds get 12.5%. Private people usually get in the range of 18 to 25%. So the public is always sucking wind on this stuff, always. But that's the impetus. We're willing to take a little bit, give the oil and gas industry 80%. We take a little bit for a resource that we own, and they have to use our water to do it. Now, this is insane. This is definitionally insanity. But that's exactly what our state proposes that we accept, and we can't accept it. We don't have that water. In case you haven't noticed, all the rivers on the Front Range are over-appropriated. The only way they're going to get this water is take it from someone else. And they'll take it from agriculture. Ag will sell it, at a good price. But remember, the water belongs to us. And if we can pass the public trust doctrine, it'll take water away as a commodity that these people can use any way they want. Now, I fully support bans in these cities. And that's why I went to the Democracy School. And it gives you an idea of how this might be done. But it doesn't help these rural areas. This will be very difficult to do on a statewide or a countywide basis. And that's why I think this public trust doctrine is so important. It protects the people in rural areas.
Can you repeat what that doctrine is again? Just
The public trust doctrine?
Yeah, can you just repeat that?
Well, basically all it is the notion that since the water and the rivers belong to us, and all the water in the state belongs, groundwater, all of it, we have a right to determine how much can be used and how much must stay in the river. And the river has first call. And anything above what the river needs, or the groundwater needs to maintain balance, which Robert Penn Warren would call the great web of things, so that we can keep it balanced, then we can say, no, you can't take any more. This is it for now. Maybe at some future date there might be more. This is the way to do it in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has public trust doctrine. In Pennsylvania, if they want to frack, they have to go to the commission to get water. They can't just go and get water someplace, buy it from somebody. They have to go to a commission. And the commission says, yeah, the river will support, you taking a certain amount of water out at this time. But there'll be other times they say, no, you can't have it. The fish need it, the wetted perimeter needs it, blah, blah, blah. We don't have that in this state. It's all free-for-all. It's part of the ancient Old West, but please support the public trust doctrine. We need. It's going to be a massive fight. I mean, you won't believe what's going to happen. But go into your cities and say, we don't want fracking here. And they'll say, well, we have this Supreme Court decision. Boss, say, well, it has to be overturned because it's wrong. And it was made well before we could understand what this world is going to look like if we let them come in any place they want to. Thanks.
I just want to add one quick fact. Once that water is utilized for fracking, it is out of the water cycle. What they do is they pump it down in, and it doesn't come back out, and any that does come back out is contaminated. So we can't reclaim that water. So just imagine that. 5 million gallons per well times all of these wells in a semi-arid environment. And it's not ours. And each well can be fracked more than once, exactly.
And the deep injection wells and putting the 40% that stays in there, that's a permanent legacy of toxicity that remains, that can then migrate to other groundwater, aquifers, etc. when the concrete breaks down, as concrete is apt to do.
I should mention that we Be the Change is sponsoring a democracy school as well as the people in Boulder. Ours is on the 24th and 25th at a site yet to be named, but we hope that you'd be interested in attending. I think you'll find it very enlightening.
Will it be offered after February, or?
Well, yeah, I think so. Our problem is we need to start moving on this right away. I mean, we already see legislation being introduced down there that will take away more rights from the people. Ted Harvey, the imbecile from Highlands Ranch, has introduced legislation that would disallow people from regulating their own environment, their local, their own communities. It's just on and on it goes. So we really we're up against it. I mean, they've got a lead on us, but we're numerous.